Ladies, the way that we speak to each other is really a manifestation of manners, whether it's good manners or bad manners. But it goes without saying that the moment we open our mouths, we will be able to tell listeners whether we're refined and polished or not. We could be exceptionally dressed, but ladies, if our speech lets us down, we will garner a reputation for being someone that's not very elegant and people won't want to be around us. You could potentially be excluded from certain social settings, which is something that you want to avoid, especially on your journey to leveling up. Ladies, in this video, I am going to teach you how to master the art of conversation to help you become an expert conversationalist and ensure that you exude elegance in your speech. Number 1, conversation openers. Ladies, let's say that you're at a party and you're approached by a man. I mean, that's probably why you're watching this video. You want to ensure that you impress. What do you speak about? This person has approached you. How do you break the ice? Well, ladies, one of the simplest ways to do this is perhaps by asking the person how they know the host. This way you establish common ground and you don't ask questions that are intrusive or a bit awkward. Ladies, what you don't do is ask the person, if they work in the area or what they do for work. These are very intrusive questions, but unless he volunteers that information to you, you can have a conversation about it, but don't ask these kind of questions. Number 2, in conversation. Ladies, the techniques that you would use when speaking in a group are completely different to the ones that you would use when you're speaking to an individual one-on-one. So let's say that you're among a group of people. Let's say there's about 10 people around the table. When you're conversing in this group, things can be slightly different. It's very hard to ascertain when to speak because there are people speaking simultaneously, but you don't want to interrupt or interject, but you don't want to remain silent. So what do you do? If there's a gap in the conversation, you can, contribute to it and say something short and sweet. But avoid rambling and telling these long-winded stories that could potentially bore your listeners. On the other hand, it's really important to be able to contribute to a conversation, and this is why as an elegant woman it's very important for you to be well read and informed about things that are happening in the world, because that way having a conversation, especially with people that you're not familiar with, wouldn't be too much of an awkward or daunting thing. If you remain silent and fade into the background, your listeners could potentially think that you are, aloof, or you're just uninterested in what's going on. Even if you're painfully shy, it's really important to just try and say a few words of relevance, of course, but don't keep silent in the corner because you could actually put the host off that way. Number 3, what not to say. Unfortunately, at a dinner table conversation, there's bound to be one person who says things that they're not really supposed to say or just lack tact overall. If someone does say something out of line, ladies, please take note of this. The way that we react to something somebody has said that's quite unsavory will really tell onlookers whether we're elegant or not. For example, let's say that a couple of guests next to you are talking badly about somebody that you happen to know. What do you do in that situation? Well, ladies, what you wouldn't do, first of all, is cause commotion or confront the person, because this will be extremely awkward and it just makes you look belligerent. This is how you handle that situation. You would turn to a guest next to you and you would say, "Oh, you happen to know Susan, don't you?" That way they would quickly pipe down and end the bad mouthing, and you will see how quickly they change the subject. This way you would show that not only are you very polished and that you're able to diffuse potentially awkward situations, but you also show that you're not one to indulge in gossip, and this will resonate with your other guests. So that's a very good technique to use. 4, taboo topics. Ladies, at a dinner table or any conversation that you're engaged in, it's really important not to get involved in contentious topics such as politics, which could really result in heated debates and discussions. These are subjects that people are very touchy about, so it's really important to avoid this, just to ensure that you don't put a damper on the evening. Don't speak about sex or intimacy or relationships in general. These are very private topics and it can really put you in a bad light, especially if you're the one who brought up the conversation. You can't imagine saying to someone, oh, has the divorce gone through? Oh, how's the relationship going? I heard that you guys are having problems. That's just, it's embarrassing, and elegant women would never put someone on the spot like that. So please refrain from those kind of topics. You can speak about current affairs, the food that's being consumed. Of course, you won't spend the whole evening talking about food, but things that are light-hearted and don't result in anyone feeling awkward or embarrassed. Don't speak about money or investments or wages and things like that. Again, this is a very personal topic. Ladies, if you happen to be dining with people who are from the high echelons of society, who are quite wealthy, you don't want to be seen as being primarily interested in money and investments and things like that. It could just make you look like a gold digger or just an opportunist. So do not bring those conversations up. I can assure you that your hosts and the other guests are very unlikely to bring up those topics, so it will be unbecoming of you to do so. Number 5, the use of compliments. As a lady, I've addressed this in a previous video. Don't pay men compliments. It can be a bit too much. Oh, I love your suit, it looks so nice. Oh, you look so polished, you look like a gentleman. It is just too much, ladies. You don't want to be seen as desperate or overly eager to impress, so refrain from doing that. And if somebody pays you a compliment, take it and say thank you. You don't have to say, oh, you look stunning as well. Just take it as a compliment and move on. Another thing about giving compliments is to ensure that you say it with calmness. Don't get overly excited about receiving compliments and giving compliments. If you are complimenting, for example, a guest on their dress, you don't say, oh my goodness, your shoes, your dress, you look incredible. It's too much. You look eager, you look as if you don't get out much. You could just say, that's a really beautiful dress that you have on. Again, don't behave as if you're overly impressed. For example, if you go to a host's house and they happen to have beautiful furniture in their house, you don't look around and say, wow, oh my goodness, oh, your house is gorgeous. Again, it looks very amateurish. Also, it could look like you're not accustomed to nice things or you hardly get out much, but people do tend to judge you on these things, so just ensure that you keep it classy, elegant and moderate. Ladies, I also want to give you some examples on how to compliment. Now, you would never say something like, wow, you look so slim. I really love your hairstyle. I mean, it looks so much better than the short one. That's not actually a compliment. You're actually insulting the person and just covering it up with a compliment. That is not how to compliment somebody. What a beautiful house you have. Or that's a lovely dress you're wearing. Again, keep it simple and keep it moderate. Good, skilled conversations are an art form in itself. If you get it wrong, it could really ruin your reputation. Remember, words are just something you cannot take back once they've been said. However, if you get it right, you'll be remembered for the right reasons. People will be very intrigued by you, they'll be delighted by your presence, and then they'll be very happy to extend an invitation to you next time. Some examples of getting it wrong. Interrupting. Ladies, honestly, this is so annoying and it's one of the quickest ways to put the guests off. I've seen people mid-conversation getting interrupted by somebody who starts talking about a completely unrelated topic. That is so disrespectful. But like I said, there's an art form to good conversations. If you're in the middle of a conversation and you find that the person that was talking has been interrupted, you can just turn to the person that had interrupted and just give a quick acknowledgement, maybe a nod, and say, oh, by the way, you were saying. This is quite a tactful way to stop the person interrupting any further. A second example of getting it wrong is name dropping. Now ladies, this is such a cheap way of making you look important. Name dropping is when you are speaking, you make it known subtly or sometimes even obviously that you know of a particular person of importance. They would probably say something like, oh, do you know such and such a person? Yeah, we spoke last night. She's an excellent lawyer. People ordinarily do this to hope that it will impress the listener, but ladies, it completely puts the listener off. And it really just shows that you're not as elegant and refined as you're trying to make out to be. Ladies, this is a no-no. It's done to really show off who you know, and it just kind of makes you look desperate as if you're trying to fit in, so don't name drop. Ladies, I finally want to speak about introductions. Introductions are such an important way to be able to leave a lasting first impression. Making introductions absolutely can be quite nerve-wracking, especially if you're quite shy. A couple of reasons why people might be reluctant to make introductions. They may be wary of interrupting a conversation, or they may be unwittingly put into the spotlight, and some people hate that. However, introductions are really important, especially as a host, because until a person is properly introduced to the group, that person doesn't really exist. So if you want to allow the person to feel part of the group, part of the party, then it's important that good introductions are made. And ladies, for those of you who are guests, for example, if you've brought a +1 with you, please ensure that you introduce that person to the group, because you wouldn't want them to feel excluded. You want them to enjoy the evening. On a separate note, let's say that you're trying to introduce a couple of people that you're not familiar with and you forget their names. What do you do, ladies? Well, ladies, what you wouldn't do is try to blag it and guess their names, because that could just make you look very silly. If you can't remember the person's name, it's okay to turn to the person and say, I'm really sorry, could you just repeat your name again? Or you could say, I'm so sorry, I couldn't quite make out your name, it was noisy. Could you just repeat it for me, please? Don't pretend as if you know. Again, just be honest. Now ladies, please watch my video called 10 things that elegant women never do. I have touched on a few of these points, but I've also spoken about other things that you should really avoid if you don't want to come across as amateur and you really want to exude that level of elegance and class. Ladies, thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of Woman of Elegance. I really hope you're enjoying my channel and hoping that it's helping you in your journey to really leveling up and becoming that polished, elegant lady that you deserve to be. Thank you for watching.